Hey y'all, it's Tara-Nicholle Kirk here. I'm the founder and CEO of Soul Tour and the creator of Transformation Tuesday. If you don't get the Transformation Tuesday newsletter, you should get it. It's one of the best things I create and it's totally free. So go to soultour.com/sign up. I'm sitting down today because I broke one of my feet. And someone the other day asked me about whether I've ever thought about the symbol or the metaphoric, I think they said, the metaphoric correlations of illness. And I was like, have I ever thought about it? So I just know that for next week, I'm working up a whole Transformation Tuesday dedicated to understanding illness and injury and infinite intelligence. And, looking at illness and injury as this very multifaceted, sometimes spiritual alarm clock, sometimes practice in, no longer self-silencing. So there's all these different ways to look at illness and injury through the lens of spiritual strategy. And that's what we're going to talk about next week, because it's kind of a manifesto. So I wanted to spend some time with that. So this week, one thing that's come to me very clearly this week, and especially, we just came out of a Mercury retrograde. A lot of people are feeling a lot of darkness or heaviness or coming through time of crisis in this moment, in this season. So today I want to talk to you about what comes after crisis. And this is a message I'm going to tell you. I'm going to start it with a story from the Bible, but truly every sacred tradition, the very most ancient traditions, spiritual traditions in humanity, say the same truth. Okay, so there's an Old Testament story that people always tell the wrong way, in my opinion. In the story, King David's beloved child, who's just an infant, gets very, very sick. And for 7 days, King David sits vigil. He refuses to eat. He prays and pleads with God for his son's recovery and his son's life. He wears sackcloth. He sleeps on the floor. He refuses all his normal luxuries and creature comforts. And after the 7th day, the little boy dies anyway. All right. So David's whole household, all of his servants, are super concerned about how he's going to take the news. They're so concerned that they don't even want to tell him. They don't even want to tell him that the little boy has passed away. But he's the child's dad, so he figures it out. And when he gets confirmation that the boy has actually died, his reaction is very surprising. He gets up off the floor where he's been, laying, praying. He takes a shower. He washes his face. He gets dressed and he asks for a meal. And then he eats. And David's whole staff is like, wait, what happened? Like, what? You were so devastated when the boy was sick, but now he's dead and you're good? Well, David says something to the effect of, before I was hoping that my cries and pleas would help the boy survive. But now that he's gone, all of the tears in the world will not bring him back. I will see him. I trust and know that I will see him again someday in the afterlife. All right, so every single time I've ever heard that story told, I've heard it told as a story of resilience. When you hit the rough stuff, when you lose something precious, when a season ends against your will, don't wail and moan and fret. Get up, wash your face, get back in the saddle. That's how that story is told all the time. But to me, the most powerful part of the story hasn't even been told yet. All right, so after David ate, he goes to comfort his wife. And during all of this comforting, his wife gets pregnant. She eventually gives birth to another son. That son is Solomon. That baby would eventually become King Solomon, the historical Jewish emperor whose name, his very name, symbolizes wisdom and clear-minded discernment and near limitless prosperity. All right? So, as I read it, the moral of the story is not get up and get over it and wash your face. All right, that's not the moral of the story. The moral of the story, as I read it, is that after a grave crisis, like a very dark night of the soul, not just like, you know, Instacart delivered you the wrong thing, which is irritating, but it's not a dark night of the soul. After a season of true, deep, profound loss, after death and after mourning, comes creation and comes wisdom. All right? So, lest you think this is just me giving you a hip hip hooray, overly optimistic, which is not, I don't think you can be overly and optimistic. You can be over, you can be extra, but that's kind of a good thing, and optimistic is definitely a good thing. Can't have too much optimism. No, pretty sure that's true. Lest you think this is just Tara's spin trying to get y'all, you know, motivated and get up and do some stuff. Know that all of the ancient spiritual traditions had this same principle, had some very important, very profound deity or representation of this principle of death preceding birth, destruction, the destruction of war being paired with, or being one with, being one in the same, you know, being with the blossoming of wisdom. All right? Hinduism. The Hindu goddess Kali was known as the Dark Mother. She represented death and destruction, but death and destruction of the ego and the ignorance and the illusions that keep us trapped in these human cycles of just suffering and ignorance, right? She especially represented the death and destruction of the delusion of permanency. And you can think about the delusion of permanence as the fear of change. So she stood for the death and destruction of the fear of change, right? Kali is often depicted as having black skin, symbolizing that she was primordial, symbolizing that she was present before humans, before time began, before Earth was created. And so it is appropriate that she, this dark mother goddess, might hold the primal universal balance in her symbolic hands. Death before life, darkness before dawn, destruction before creation. All right? So when you see paintings of Kali, she often has 4 hands, 2 dedicated to destruction, 2 dedicated to creation. Her right hands are held out to bestow blessings on the humans, and her left hands, one of them has a sword to destroy ignorance and illusion, and the other one holds a severed head. No big deal. All right, so Kali represents the destruction of demonic forces in order to liberate humans, and then in the same being, the creation of fresh blessings and fresh possibilities each and every day. That's just one, okay? Like the Egyptian goddess Net was this Net the Terrifying. I love her because they called her the Terrifying. The same. She, in one being, wielded the power to destroy all things, but then every morning, the story about Net is she got up in the morning and on her loom weaved the sun into the sky and weaved the whole world into creation every morning. The Greek goddess Athena, who was inspired by Net, same thing. She was the goddess. People always talk about Athena as the goddess of wisdom. Athena was the goddess of wisdom and war strategy. Okay. All right. So do you see this? This principle is a principle of universal balance, destruction, creation, death, rebirth, war, wisdom, all together in spirit and together in science. Okay. Like the elements of everything, the constituent elements of every iota of matter, material substance that has ever existed, lived, or died on this planet, the elements of it are recycled into the new things that are born and now live, including you and me. And everything in the same way right? Science can be symbolic too, in the same exact way. Everything you've ever wanted that didn't work out, everything you've ever tried and failed at, every season of your life that's ever ended against your will, all of that was creating and preparing the space for fresh, new realities to be born in you and through you. But more importantly, all of your past endings, the death of things, and people, the destruction of things, the collateral damage of the wars within you and all around you in your world, they create clarity and they create wisdom. Okay? They create clarity and they create wisdom. But you gotta catch this principle. You cannot start receiving and leveraging the clarity and the wisdom of your crises or losses until you acknowledge them, grieve them, and open yourself to the creation that wants to flow to you and through you next. All right? Only you can choose to leave the death season and come into the season of the new thing. All right? Only you can elect to emerge from the dark season. And I'm not suggesting you should rush that or force that or track how long it's taken you to get out of your darkness or try to make it happen faster. Divine timing is real. That means even what feel like delays are benefiting you, okay? But only you can make the election to emerge from the dark season. You must make that election. You must decide to get up and wash your face and eat your meal and go comfort your wife. You must decide that I'm not gonna let my traumatizers own another single precious moment of my life. Okay? That's a decision that only you can make. And you will, and when you make it, doesn't mean that all the remnants of the darkness are necessarily gone, right? You will have to step out of your comfort zone and into your discomfort zone. You will have to sit down at the loom, like the goddess net, and begin to weave your new world into life. Knowing that you are being assisted and aided and guided and helped by all the higher forces of humanity that care about human evolution, by beauty, by truth, by love, by justice, by source, by God, by all that is, by divine. You call it what you want to. These forces desire to assist you. All right? And when you sit down at your loom and you begin to weave the next new thing, the new creation into life, they show up. They show up. And just so you know, there is no website you go to put your email address in and get a PDF that's like steps 1 through 7 of creating your new world after a season of grief. There is no exact instruction manual for this. You may feel untethered during this process. It may get really messy and feel messy. You may be a person who is very smart and successful and you don't like things that feel messy. You like to be able to action plan, troubleshoot, and be genius all along the way. And that ain't how a radically liberated next season of life following grief usually works, right? It may even feel terrifying to you. Like the goddess net, destruction and creation in this cosmic way can feel terrifying. But if you feel those feelings, know that that is just unintegrated excitement at your own coming expansion. Allow the fear to be transmuted into exhilaration over time as you take steps, as you await inspiration as to your inspired next step, and you take the step and things start working out for you and you can see how everything is working out for you. All right? Know that if you feel untethered during the process, you're probably doing it right, because radical liberation is untethering by definition. When you get off that treadmill of checking the boxes of how other people say you're supposed to live your life, you lose the tether of identity that so many people have, because our culture is a culture in which people live their lives directed by external validation, external values. So when you choose to take control, come out of your season of sorrow and into the next season, weave your new world, it'll feel a little untethering. That means you're doing it right. And I promise you that you will find ground again. And when you find it, it will be higher ground than you've ever been on before. All right? So anytime you're in a dark season, or anytime you feel the darkness, you feel like you're kind of coming to the end of it, and you can feel it kind of starting to break, starting to lift, I want you to think on these two things. One, know that the darkness will end. It is cosmic balance. It is universal law. It is a house rule of the universe. Darkness precedes dawn. Dawn keeps coming. And know this, number two, the end of the darkness is not the end of the story, right? Sometimes you have traumas that feel like you'll never, ever come out from living under the weight of them. The end of the darkness is not the end of the story for you. It is the beginning of your next chapter. It's the beginning of your next season. All right, so I implore you to let things take the time they take. To grieve what needs grieving and process what needs processing, and then when the time feels right, to begin your gracious, graceful, grateful exit from the grief story, from the grief season, to gather up all the pieces of yourself that you may have rediscovered while you were in the darkness, in the shadow place, to collect up all the clarity that's always trying to come to us in times of crisis, and to keep everything from your past, from the darkness, from your current circumstances, to seek out and to keep everything that establishes wisdom and clarity and divine order in your mind, in your body and affairs, starting right now today. Okay, as you metabolize this season, I want you to find out and seek out the things about even the darkness, right, that feel like clarity, that feel like wisdom earned and gained. And I want you to ask the source within you, the power within you, the infinite intelligence within you, to sweep everything out of your consciousness, out of your mind, out of your body, and out of your affairs that is not divinely planned, not divinely planted, and not beneficial to you. All right? This sweep visual comes from an old Florence Scovel Shen declaration. And I love that she talks about the visual of like the power within you is sweeping everything out that can't come with you into the next season of the reality you're creating, okay? So you keep what serves you, you let the rest be swept away, and ask the power within you to sweep it away. Don't feel like you gotta do the hard work of unlearning or none of that, okay? Get help. Decide to forgive everyone in your life and release them with love so that you can be free and they can be free. Thanks, Louise Hay, for that. And allow the wise inner intelligence, the wise inner being in you, infinite intelligence in you, creative power that flows through you, the limitless love that is you, your wise unconscious. Allow it to do the hard part, the reordering of your understanding or even your memory of what has happened. Allow it to be reordered in a way that bypasses nothing, but distills all of that experience into the wisdom you will need to feed and to fuel your future. The best compliment I ever have received in this life was when my friend Victoria Castle, who wrote The Trance of Scarcity, told me, she said, Tara, nothing is lost on you. Nothing is lost on you. And that's probably true about me. So, and I want to pass that on to you. Let nothing be lost on you. Get maximum juice for the squeeze of your seasons of darkness. And then slowly or rapidly and exuberantly, dive in. Participate fully and joyfully in weaving your new world to life, your new projects, your new body, your new way of being, your new identity, which is your old, true, and sacred self you came here as, just minus all the bullshit, your new relationships, your new ways of being, your new life. Dive in joyfully and fully, participate fully, hold nothing back as you weave all of that to life. All right, so keep your head up, keep your heart out. I'll do the same. I'll see you next Transformation Tuesday. And I want to issue kind of like a video PS to this lesson. You know, the David story is a story about him losing a child and another child coming. And I know that for some people, when you look at that story through modern eyes, the idea of one literal child being replaced by another literal child is very disturbing and upsetting to people. So if you are one of those people, I want you to remember this now and forever after when you listen to a Transformation Tuesday or any other material from Tara, from Soul Tour, from the School of Spiritual Strategy. The way to get the most out of any sacred text you will ever read in this life is to read it symbolically. Okay? Now, and that doesn't detract from or take away from any historical accuracy of any of these texts. Like David's children were actually historical people. But almost more importantly, they symbolized any important or precious thing that we create. Any important or precious thing we bring to life, we give birth to, we breathe our life into. So our sacred contracts, our sacred callings, our sacred projects, our sacred relationships and realities. All right, so put on your symbolic interpretation cap, especially when you dive into sacred texts or mythology or folklore or literature. It's how or even your dreams, as you analyze your own dreams or even your own illnesses. So like I said, we'll come back to that next week. I love you. I'll see you next Transformation Tuesday.